Good evening, televiewers. You're welcome to this further edition of Prime Hour on My Media Prime. For some time now, we have not spoken about the Anglophone crisis. That is why on the very first edition of the week on Prime Hour, we're going to be looking at the unending Anglophone crisis, asking the question whether it is a forgotten problem for communities to sort themselves out of it. What is happening? For a very long time, we've not heard the U.S. Senate or Congress say a word on the Anglophone crisis. The EU Parliament also has hardly said a word on it. Even in Cameroon, we've not seen moves being made to sort this thing out. What is happening? Is it fatigue about the crisis, or the fact that many key stakeholders are getting themselves tired and worn out and are caught in a web, not knowing which way to go as far as finding a lasting solution to the ongoing crisis that has been rocking the southwest and northwest regions for over 6 years now? In this edition of the program, we're going to be discussing this with Dr. Ako John Ako, who is a lecturer with some universities across Cameroon, also a very key member of Cameroon Civil Society. Good evening, welcome.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure, Mr. Leonard. It's equally a pleasure for us talking to Cameroonians, and again, the African continent. Anglophone crisis with somebody, or so many have concluded that becomes maybe the last load that might bring down the economy, the politics, the socio-cultural heritage of Cameroon. 7 years almost being counted. Many thought it was an issue to be discussed and handled in a single day. The consortium constructed and even started negotiation with the government, dismantled, and a host of its members arrested. And the government thought equally that arresting and intimidation could equally solve the crisis. We are now still counting that several times the measure of national dialogue was looked as a remnant and equally as a catalyst to bring down or quell down tempers. It is really true that for now, nothing has been said about, again, the evaluation commission of the measure of national dialogue, with equally and always taking high instruction from the head of state to review what they have done, and several other commissions that were created, some like that, to rewrite the history of Cameroon, become perfectly silent. The disarmament centers or whatsoever to acquire or to receive disarmed soldiers or rebels, today others complain that the tactics, the methods of reintegrating them into social life becomes a difficulty. Not only that, but that when such that have equally resigned or dropped their weapons are today being used as laboratory rats or weapons to test the efficacy of many of what they call the hideout of separatists. Are these the proper methods of handling a crisis in a country that is economically drowning and draining every day? And many others still think that the center is no longer holding, and that Yaoundé is not really in control of most of the cardinal points of the country, the north, the east, the west, and the south. And that Cameroon is going through down the drain like a nation that was not peaceful before. Anglophone crisis 7 years after, if care is not taken, even when neglected, might cost a lot of damage, not only to Cameroon, and might be, why not, to the sub-region.
Okay, we also in the company of Paddy Asanga, who is taking part on Prime Hour for the second time live with us in the studio. He's here with us all the way from Hamburg in Germany. Good evening, Paddy. We're glad to have you.
Good evening, Mr. Liu, and I want to say my convivial good evening welcome or meeting with Dr. Ako John Ako, Jarvis, yourself, the initiator of this Prime Hour program, and my friend, Dr. Ndimancho. It is always a pleasure to come home and sit with us, among us, to discuss our problem. I just listened to Dr. Ako John Ako, a very brilliant personality that I know as a civil society activist, who has been doing a great job in sensitizing Anglophone Cameroonians. And 6 or 7 years down the line, I think the recipe to the Anglophone problems still lies in the hands of the Anglophones. And one of my mentors planted the decoration to resolve the Anglophone problem, but unfortunately, the so-called Ambazonians kidnapped him and precipitated his death. I'm talking of His Eminence, the late Cardinal Christian Tumi. I will never forget that. We have gotten to a situation where we are no more talking about the Anglophone problem, which is a legitimate problem put on the table by the consortium. But now we are talking about kidnapping for ransom, Anglophones killing themselves, and some people like myself who don't nurture the courage to come home and sit with people like you who are victims of this government to talk with you, but they just give orders, go and kidnap Mr. Kum Leonard, go and kidnap Akko John Akko because he did not speak well, but the next day they are hailing him and all that stuff. Where are we heading to? So we are in a situation where we have people who have the potential to contribute to the development of our local communities. But they refuse deliberately to do that because they think that they have the partnership of the destiny of this country just because they arrive in the diaspora. Ask me. You hear somebody call commissioner from home front, commissioner for this, okay. General this. Where are they? Where them they? Let's talk about it.
Okay, where the
nonsense, rubbish, foolishness.
Tamai Jarvis is sitting in for Senior Barrister Ashu Emmanuel, who we hope is going to be joining us because of the program. Good evening, Jarvis. We're glad to have you again.
Good evening, Mr. Liu. Good evening to all those who are watching us. From the hills of Mount Cameroon, the voices of our mothers, our fathers, Christian civil society organization have been crying loud. Their voices are heard meandering to the dirty sand beaches, the dark sand beaches in Limbe, and their tears are felt in the savannah of the Northwest region. And hoping that their tears will mend that into Yaoundé, that the fruit of love and peace will be discussed. We are counting 7 years, and what we see is counter accusations from left, right, center. And the question you're asking is, the common massive conflict be abandoned for the people to resolve them. Day in, day out, we see people marks of pride overshadowing reasoning, and we are tempted to ask what are where is the fate of the nation. And the anthem rightly puts it that worth no tongue can tell. And it's like our forerunners, our forefathers saw Cameroon from how it will be and said that worth no tongue can tell. Really, the worth of intimidation, arbitrary, gruesome murder, killings, backbiting, hatred, no tongue can tell.
Okay. Thank you too, and we are welcoming Dr. Michael Dimancho, lecturer and civil society actor in Cameroon. We're glad to have you.
Thank you, Mr. Liu. I'd like to give say a special welcome to Paddy Asanga. Of course, he's one of the persons that we know. He talks from abroad and comes back to the country and talks. And I'm challenging other people to do the same. We have people who remain abroad and they ignite people, young people here, illiterate, to go to the streets, to go to the bushes and do the unseen things that we're watching happen in our streets. That said, I think we have come from a very, very long way, 6 years down the line. While others are at the offensive, the citizens, the Ambazonian who are the defensive. From the catapults, the rubber gun, down to the chowum, the locally made guns, to explosives, to bombs, to burning of schools, to churches, kidnapping, raping, beheading, and all of those. And we are 6 years down the line. And it appears the people are more or less getting used to the war. Because I would have thought that by now, the whole of Northwest and Southwest will have been empty. But the poor citizens are standing their ground. They didn't know they were going. Some couldn't allow their old parents or their sick ones to run out of the regions. Others remained there for so many reasons. But then, 6 years down the line, we are saying that the Northwest and Southwest has to exist. And since we have accepted it has to exist because people have existed for these 6 years, despite all the bombing and all the kidnappings, people are still there, then I think that it is time for someone to understand that the war will not be won by the gun or by bombs or whatsoever, and that it will only be won by negotiations. Because if it was by the bomb and by the gun, and then the war will have already been won. Be it on the side of the governments, or be it the side of the separatists. I think that all of us, we need to develop restraints. There's need for flexibility. There is need for us to come and say that we have exhausted all that we had as arsenals, and that we are not being able to win the war. What do we have to do? Let us get up the next morning as brothers and sisters, because actually it is not by fighting that we are going to win. If not, we will have won already. Be it that many say the president declared war, and others say the separatists themselves, they stood their grounds, and making it already an economy, war economy, making it already a kind of a business that a lot of people are coming into it to take an advantage. We have seen that we are missing out on the point, because I can vehemently and fervently say here now that it is not more a war of liberation, but it's a war of interest. And since it's a war of interest, it can only interest or benefit a few people. And it is benefiting already only a few people. Now, those of us who are the majority, are we going to sit and watch the few individuals come in and benefit from our hard-earned labor, come in and benefit and trample on the blood of our brothers and sisters, our parents? I mean, it is a blood that has been poured, that has been spilled, and it is a blood that too much has been spilled already. So I think all of us will put our hands on deck, and I think that this is a turning point for all of us. Since we have exhausted everything, those the sponsors of the war, they themselves have exhausted their fundraisers and all of those. There is now infighting between all of amongst all of us. I think it is time for us now to know that this is a message, and the message is that since we have nothing more to offer, we have tried.
Why do you put in your content of all of us?
Okay.
You sponsor? Did you sponsor?
No. Let's
be clear.
Paddy, you're becoming a journalist here. But I think that when I say all of us, I'm saying that all of us have contributed in one way or the other. There is a time that you yourself, Paddy, you make a statement and you didn't mean it, and some people take it for a different thing. You know that's who united.
Doctor,
so all of us have
let's look at this. We are more than 6 years into a crisis that we all thought may take 2, 3, 4 weeks or almost 2 years. How do we explain that till date we have not been able to take this thing out?
Yeah, it is but gentle. It is normal that for 6 years we have been unable. I said at the beginning, somebody is sick of malaria, and you propose him a tablet that cannot cure him of malaria. You look for other avenues which are not appropriate. You don't expect him to get healed. Somebody equally look at the situation when the tablet to provide malaria should take even 100 years, so that he keep on reaping from the fruits of his labor or that of the agent that is sponsoring him. I'm talking to what sometimes we call the Amber Business Challenge, using the conflict in the Northwest and the Southwest. Some people equally have been thinking that it's time to settle old grudges against other business enemies, and that they need to reign in the region. At the same time, we are talking, nobody is doubting why some businesses flourish at the same time in the environment, while others don't. When you go in the domain of the state regular soldiers, you will notice that in Southwest, in fact, from Tico, from Mogo to Boya, you have about 8 different checkpoints, and even the control on custom along the same stretch of road, Bamenda, Manfe, Ekok, has equally increased drastically, which will tell us that in the presence of a crisis, others are reaping and reaping fatly. And to some extent, this particular group of persons may not and don't even want to think that peace is returning. We were talking here again of the arrival of General Buba in the Northwest region. And when you notice that a lot of those recalcitrant controls that were giving a lot of havoc, he tried to dismantle them, which means somewhere they know equally that the setting of control and checkpoint is a source of business and financing for those who are going on in the North and the Southwest. You will find some military officials discussing that it will be better that in the next battalion that is going to the Northwest or the Southwest, I should be among, because now tempers are cooling down till birthday. the situation of making and reaping funds out of it is a problem. On the other side too, people will tell you that those we call yesterday, or those agents to handle the Anglophone problems, are now divided into camps. Away from being divided into camps, there are equally what we call infiltrators. Others have come in, not even to fight for the struggle, or they are not separated. There are people who are there to cause havoc and make money out of it. Kidnapping and asking for ransom is regular. Attacking business centers and hospitals or whatsoever, any other business unit, intimidating or civilians over the phone for ransom has become equally a bad way. This means that there is a reason, and that somewhere, if care is not taken, I have always been saying, it might equally take gradually, but it might come to stay if the best cure is not given to an Anglophone crisis. The cure here, we are talking of the sincerity on those we call the belligerents, those who are actively involved in the struggle, to accept. At one point, people will tell you that you accuse separatists, you accuse this, but what can we do? I have said the highest person. There is honesty when we speak the truth to one another. From the time Anglophone needed apology, to some extent, some of us have said the least Anglophone were asking is federation. The federation was considered a criminal act and a terrorist act to an extent that people were even asked not to even talk about it on TV station. And I asked the question, where in the world has federation been equated to terrorism? And today, people are free to talk about the federation and nobody has been arrested. This means that we must learn to listen to what we have never heard in terms at the height of the crisis. People have refused to even think that the form of the state was discussed in 1961. It was discussed in 1972. It was an act of the President of the Republic in 1984. Why do we think that 30 or 25 years after, we cannot still talk about the form of the state?
Even in
1996, it was discussed at the 1996 Constitution. So why can't we talk about the form of the state? There is nothing when we're in a crisis. Everything that can bring a cure to a nation is worth discussing. It is worth talking about. So we went for the national dialogue. There was a commission selected to be called a commission for decentralization. It was fake. It was just the beginning when we said it is the beginning of the failure of the same major national dialogue. Yes, 3 years, 4 years gone after the major national dialogue. What are the fruits? What have we gained? The issue is, at times, people get tired and abandoned, but it doesn't mean that such ideologies and ideas have been cured. We need cure, not fatigue. We need treatment and sustainable rules to take care of the Anglophone crisis and the people in the Northwest and the Southwest. What we were thinking as positive mind individual, what we call the special status. If the government has said Anglophone will be ruled by federation and that the other side will continue with its decentralization, it's honesty in accepting that Cameroon was born as a two-state system under one. That is what exists in Hong Kong and Beijing. People will tell you that the other side speaks English, are of British, and they have their culture. And yes, but when the head of state declared himself openly at the Paris Peace Conference, that they were thinking that they could assimilate, they could easily, it is an acceptance already. So why do we avoid taking decisions that can cure the illness we are having when we have already and we know the cause?
What is the cure? What is the sure cure?
That is why I said Anglophones demanded for federation.
Yeah.
Why can't we go for federation? If the French system demands decentralization, Cameroon can still be ruled as two systems. We have common law, civil law.
Are you sure that Ayabacho today, Chris Ano, and let me say Sako and the rest, would they go for federation?
We are not talking of individuals. We are talking of the will of the people.
They are leading,
and that is what I'm saying. After any amendment,
they are the ones in charge today.
They might be
in charge of what?
Mr. Leonard.
No.
In charge of what?
Let me
no, I am in the diaspora, and you are telling me about.
Let me talk.
Let me finish with him.
Let me talk. One of the things
in charge of what?
He has.
Talking about
yes, I know. Yeah. You called some actors. Yes. Likewise, in the crisis, we have other actors,
including Ayuk Tabe, who is there. Yeah.
Yes, including Ayuk Tabe, including
Where are their children?
Please. We don't get into children.
No, it's not a matter of you have to be honest on this platform.
Excuse me.
This is the voice of the Anglophones. You people are talking about political scavengers who are hiding in the diaspora, protecting their children. No, please.
Paddy, let me talk. he is free to his words. He chooses his own people. He has not equally mentioned those who participated in the major national dialogue who were equally from the diaspora. And I'm telling you that the peace conference that just held in Canada, it was made up of Anglophone Cameroonians who equally have been thinking that there is a need for a dialogue that should take place out of Cameroon. And they equally think that all is worth negotiating and not only separation. What I am calling here is that Ayoktabe, Ayabacho, Chris Anu, Edin Gang, and whosoever, everybody has his opinion. Likewise, at the end of any negotiation, everything that had been drafted, not the type of monologue we did. We knew what came out in 1972.
Okay.
We go with what we call the Yaoundé Declaration. And whatsoever that happened as a major national dialogue, that constitution should be submitted for validation. And that will not be validated by the diaspora. The voting will take place at home. And we will not be considering that how many camps were there, who is against or who is not for. Remember, it might take us time.
No. This camp, is it Anglophones or separatists?
That's what I said. You have separatists. Those are the separatist camp you called. You have not called any federalist group. Yeah. Not equally that they exist federalists.
That is the question I asked.
But this standing here is a unionist.
No, the question I asked to you is that the question I asked. No, the question.
No, you are not one Cameroon. Please, you are one of one Cameroon.
Please, the question I asked. The question I asked to you is that those who are pushing the crisis, pushing the agenda for separation, I cited.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I'm asked in their comfort zone in the diaspora and send other people's children to go and die for an ideology that they themselves don't believe in. Today they are calling for dialogue. Let me make that one very clear. Now, 6 years down the line, who is blocking the Anglophone or resolutions to the Anglophone problem? Remember, there was and there is a Tanganji Paul who accused late Christian Cardinal to me when he said that every conflict ends on the table. Anglophones should be prepared because let not be taken by surprise. People did not listen, especially some of those talking heads in the diaspora. They called him all sorts of names, went and kidnapped him. I don't want to go into the details of how he was released, but this was a man who was very old and was living on drugs. Imagine what happens to a man who lives on his drug and you keep him for 24 hours without his drug. You are barely accelerating his death, and that's what they did. The order came not from you, Dr. Aku, John Aku, not from you, Jarvis, not from you. It came from those people that you are calling Ayabacho and you're saying they're stakeholders. And he was lying in the swimming pool with his children, giving orders to go and kidnap His Eminence Christian Cardinal to me. And you want to tell me that they are pulling this thing in charge of what? Have you spoken to the family of Florence Ayafo and know what they think? Have you spoken to the family of Bebe Blanche, Efonjian, who was buried alive? Have you spoken to the family of all those who have been killed? Even the Amber Boys, the 39 of Bui. Have you spoken to their family? Those are the people you should be talking to, not even me. I am one of those privileged citizens in the diaspora who comes here with his children. You saw my children here. I'm one of those privileged citizens. So when you people are saying some of these things, I don't know and I don't understand this mentality, inferiority complex, because somebody sits in the diaspora, collects money from fools, scammers, fame, and send to bangers, smokers back into the country, and you start calling them leader. Leader leading what? You want to lead, come on the ground. Come on the ground. Where are they? People sit, collect money, give to Banga boys to go and cut the heads of chiefs, bury them alive. Where are they today? Are we talking about Fimasha? They themselves, they go and kill their own because they are not subordinating, because they come to the realization that this thing that you people put us in is not working. And they go and take those children, kill them. Some of them even go and negotiate with corrupt elements in a corrupt system, the military. Corruption is not only amongst the civilians, it's also in the military. Do you know that there is economy of warfare? There is economy of warfare. And now we hear people getting rich, some of them building houses in Nigeria, in nonsense, rubbish, foolishness. Anglophones should sit down and go back to the root. Talk in one voice. Come out with documents. Don't consider, you can leave all of us who are in the diaspora. We are fine. But some of us still have this country in our heart. That's why we still nurture the courage to come here and sit with you people and tell you people the truth. He who doesn't want to listen to the truth, don't invite me on your platform. Thank you, Mr. Liu.
Okay, thank you too for... Now, can we say that this crisis also has proven our inability to be flexible, that is to shift our stances? Because from the very beginning, the government says Cameroon is united in its diversity. Separatists say we are going, we need to separate this nation. Until date, no compromise has been seen. Who is not making an effort to wanting this problem to be solved?
The issue is, let me be very honest.
I'm talking about shifting positions.
Let me be very honest with you. The separatists are not very willing to have these. The ringleaders of this fight of the separatists are not very willing to have this problem resolved. I want us to go in retrospect. When this conflict started, I listened on a certain 3 p.m. on a national radio when Minister Paul Atanganji was interviewed, and he said some of these teachers and lawyers have collected huge sums of money to want to destabilize Cameroon, and he cited a plethora of issues and said there is no Anglophone problem, and he said that the Director General of the Custom is an Anglophone, he controls huge sums of budget, so that's to tell you that Anglophones are not being marginalized. Then there was denial that there was not an Anglophone problem, and we saw now the government decided that okay, let us form the ad hoc committee to see that okay, there is a problem, and the ad hoc committee was formed, and then there was discussion with the consortium leaders, and thereafter President Biya in his end of year address in 2017, that should be 2016 31st December, actually acknowledged that there is an Anglophone problem. And now you see the government is shifting from a no Anglophone problem, now acknowledging that there is an Anglophone problem. Now you see that they were moving now from we will not talk about federation, now we are talking about federation. You see, there were taboos of issues, now we are now talking about them. I remember there was a point in time in this country where you could not even mention the word Ambazonia. You could not also talk about the word Southern Cameroon on TV, and that we are Southern Cameroonians. Now you see there's that paradigm shift gradually from the government perspective. It may not be as how many want it, but there's a shift. Now you see the government went further and saying that okay, there is a conflict, and also let's have a major national dialogue. I'm saying here that the fruit of the dialogue may have not been well articulated by the conveners, but at least it was a sign politically and within the context of a conflict to show that this party has realized that there is a problem and has shifted from its position. Now the government now moved from decentralization now to accelerated decentralization. Now you tell you that there's a bit shift. Now from the perspective of the separatists, from the separatist camp, you see we have moved from independent only, we are still at independent only. We have not had a shift to say, okay, let us now see if we can settle for federality or confederation. Now, which means that there is a fallout here who is against this conflict to be resolved. The separatists has a great role to play in terms of not wanting this conflict to come to an end. And now there is also a very key element here that many may not see it. These are surrogates. The surrogates are more dangerous than the fighters on the ground, are also more dangerous than military who are fighting. And when I talk about surrogacy, I'm talking about those who celebrate the burying of Mr. Prizo in Chang village that was recently 3 days ago alive, who celebrate that he's a black leg because he criticized Amber. Those who celebrate the fact that Amber boys had to kidnap and killed innocent civilians, those who celebrate the fact. So those are surrogacy. Now they are more dangerous than those who actually carry out those acts, and those who also celebrate the fact that these innocent civilians will be removed from their homes and killed by people who are supposed to protect them. They are more dangerous than that army. Now, these are the people who are against them, against this conflict to come to an end. There is something that also I want us to understand here. Within the context of the conflict, you asked Dr. Ako a question that will the separatist leaders want federation? Before, the separatist leaders, the name you called, had control on the ground. Before, that was 2017. Before they had control on the ground, where they were spending huge sums of money to the fighters, and the fighters at that time were not kidnapping as the way they are kidnapping now, which means that the major funding from the fighters were coming from the diaspora, and which takes us to the analogy that he who blow the piper detect the tone. At that time, that's why you could hear our boys, our boys, our boys, because fundings were coming directly from diaspora, and the boys were not kidnapping and harassing people. Now, when the separatist leaders realized that they could not, the dream was a pipe dream, was something like blowing hot air, they could not achieve it. They stopped giving funding, and now the boys move now to start generating their own revenue using the people directly or indirectly. There are communities that pay 5,000 per man, or 10,000 or 15,000. Now they started generating their revenue. It moved now from our boys to those boys, the boys. Why? Because the boys now are generating their own internal revenue. Thus, Eric Tato, Ayabacho Lucas, whoever is the diaspora has no control on the people on the ground. Now, who has control on the people on the ground? The people of the Northwest and Southwest region who are on the field, like myself, Dr. Ako, Dr. Dimancho, yourself. Those are people who have control over the activity on the ground. And if the people, as Weber said, when the people will rise and say we want federation, and if the government will yield to either a federation or a confederation, 10 state or whatever state federation, or a genuine dialogue with the people on the ground, let me tell you, those in diaspora will have nothing but to align in pressure, and those on the fighter on the ground will have nothing but to align to what the will of the people have decided. I give you an example. We have seen communities that have gotten up and chased away separatist fighters to tell you that the will of the people. We have also seen communities that have risen up and say enough is enough with military extortion. We have seen the will of the people. We saw women march right to the Dios office in Boya that we don't have electricity. We have seen the will of the people. The will of the people of the Northwest and Southwest region. They now have control of the crisis. But the fact is that they have not realized that the power bestowed now upon them to realize that they can resolve this conflict. Mr. Leo, I want us, before I end here, I want us to look at the picture now, current picture. Those in diaspora, let me be very honest with you, they are insignificant as far as resolving this conflict is concerned as compared to those who are on the ground, because he who wears the shoes knows where it pinches. Correct. Let me tell you, look Correct. At the man that was buried in Cham village. His family now has a problem with the Amber fighters. So you now have to start reconciling families by families, family by family, before you look at the general picture. So you cannot look at the head before looking at the ground. You start from bottom before going to top. So therefore, I am submitting to you here that for us, for who is against the conflict in the Northwest and Southwest region, the separatists and the people who are not realize the power that they have to rise up and say, okay, this is what we have. Like Paddy said briefly, Paddy said, let us come together now, have a joint declaration. This is what we want, and we go for it. If not, we'll still be dancing, going up and down.
Okay, Dr. Michael Dimancho, in the beginning, we read resolutions from the U.S. Senate, U.S. Congress, the EU Parliament, and so many persons were talking about the crisis at the international level. Today we get very little from them. Have they forgotten that there is a crisis in Cameroon with displaced persons in neighboring Nigeria?
You know, I won't say that they are forgotten. You know, like the U.S. particularly. Mm-hmm. I know the U.S. gave its own proposals to the Cameroon government, and it stands on it. From the 2016 to 2023, those proposals, they stand. Let me not go far. Even the bishops of the ecclesiastical province of Bamenda, during the beginning of this crisis, they gave their proposal, which I have here, and they told the government, this is what we, the bishops, are proposing as a solution to this issue. If you go back to the bishops today, they will send you back to their letter. They are consistent.
Thank you.
They are very, very consistent. And, you know, talking about the US and other countries, we believe that Cameroon is a sovereign country. That's what they say in the world. It's a sovereign country. It's a sovereign country. Well, and that they don't want to interfere. They can only give proposals. And, you know, it is also about diplomacy. And it looks at interest. The US is looking at its interest. Other countries are looking at their interests. They will not come to force Cameroon against the interests of their own citizens because they overlove Cameroon. They don't love Cameroon more than their own citizens. They, as a friendly country, we have proposed that this is what we feel should be the panacea for this issue. And if you have taken it, good. If you don't want to take it, fine. You know, we have one outspoken former U.S. Secretary of State for African Affairs, Tibo Nagy, who has consistently talked about this issue in Cameroon. And he has even gone to the clan of the separatists and said, if you really have something to do, something to say, you need to have a concerted action. If you do not have a concerted action, you will never get what you want. I mean, who has not proposed to Cameroon? We have, Dotaku talked about the peace talks, I mean, the peace in Canada. I mean, who has not spoken about the issue in Cameroon? But the issue is consistent. When you hear them keep on saying, we are highly disturbed, we are highly concerned about what is happening. Well, they can only be highly concerned. What else can they do? They cannot come and fight for us. Look at us. I mean, we who say that we have been marginalized. How can you say you are marginalized, and instead of getting the population to support you, you are there milking on the population, killing the very population you stand to defend? How do you want them to support you? Look at what happened in 2017. I'm telling you, some of us could, I mean, psychologically we could die for it. But today, it is a mirage. It's an image of itself. Because the thing has gone down to the, and you know, in a war situation, war is such a funny thing. Those who do strategy in war, they understand that in war, many people have divergent views. Those who came to this war, this liberation war, this Anglophone war, they came with different purposes, with different intentions. Some people came because they know that they are abroad and they cannot come back to Cameroon. They are on self-exile, and they know that this is the only way in which they can, I mean, play their way to come back to Cameroon. Others came because of what they know they are going to gain from it. And then a very few actually are revendicating what we are talking about here. Look at our educational system. We were an industry of education in Cameroon. And where is it today? The very Anglo-Saxon education that we are fighting for is the one that we have destroyed. Look at our economy. It is going down the drain. Because you cannot fight a war without an economy. We thought that people will be able to encourage others, I mean the economy operators, so that at least the economy should be booming. We should remain that flower that other people kept on looking at us and they were jealous of us. But where is it today? Now, that even the foreign countries, the partners, have realized that we ourselves, we do not know what we are looking for. How can you support people who kidnap, who slaughter, I mean, people and post on social media, and then you expect the foreign countries to come and say they are supporting them? There is no way this can happen, because life is separate when you go to Europe and America, and a single soul is very, very important. But come to us, what is happening with us here? We are so happy that we go into the bush, we cut and say the black leg, whether it's the red head leg that we have cut, and then we portray, we show over social media, and we say that we are succeeding and that we are winning. The very war that we said it is a God-ordained war has turned very much to a Lucifer, kind of a devilish war that we are fighting today, and we do not know where it is going to end. And let me tell you, it is now a much more spiritual war than even physical, because we do not even know what is controlling those our young brothers and sisters. Because if you see the kind of heinous crimes that they are operating over there, you see how young people are slaughtering human beings. You begin to ask yourself, but is this actually what we wanted? Somebody talked about fighting for GC board, fighting for what the Anglophones wanted. I didn't think that if we took this strategy, we'll have had it. That is a lie. And the Anglophones have known how to get their own ways. We have had the Anglophone Congress 1 and 2, the Tabata, all of those. But we knew how to go about it. And we failed to see how other people have fought liberation war. Look at South Africa. What happened in South Africa with Mandela? Mandela did not ever encourage people to go into the bushes. Okay. I mean, there was a strategy. Look at America. And Martin Luther King did not encourage people to go into the bushes. But there was a constant reminder of people of the importance of education. Because this thing is deteriorating, because people have not gone to school. These guys are remaining in the bushes. And there is, I mean, they keep on being actually behaving like wild animals in the bushes.
Okay. Dr. John Ako, we are looking at the topic has to do with whether the problem has been forgotten and that the people abandoned to themselves to sort themselves out. Away from the Europeans and the Americans, the Russians also and the Chinese. But let's come back to Africa. When this conflict started, we saw African diplomats run down to Yaoundé to discuss with the President of the Republic. Some even emitted communiques, made their thoughts known, calling for this issue to be sorted out. But for some years now, 2-3 years now, African heads of states and other organizations, instances, are behaving as though nothing is happening in Cameroon.
Yeah, you should realize that international politics has its game plan.
Okay.
They came at the beginning of a crisis, and they equally took messages back to their various groupings. Mm-hmm. And Yaoundé was, in fact, received them. They equally deposited their messages to Yaoundé. One of the things I want us to understand, at times within international politics, things are done for cosmetic purposes and not even to solve the crisis. And that the crisis is even managed far from where we are. Remember, I was one of those people who even accused the African Union president for coming and heading a visit in Yaoundé. Somebody coming to Yaoundé to be informed about the Anglophone crisis and ended between the president and the prime minister, and then after that had his dinner, and then they had some chicken and some British and Swedish wine. They all dined together. I was equally very outspoken with the coming of the Commonwealth Commission President, Patricia Scotland. A lot of that, again, you remember the words of Kofi Annan before his death, that he was ready to solve the Anglophone problems in Accra, Ghana. Unfortunately, he died then. Even the then president of that particular country, who lamented, and even Thabo Mbeki in South Africa, saying that Anglophones are going through a mess, meaning somewhere there was an acceptance that there's a problem, and somewhere the message they received from our own government had made partners to think that the decision is far from Yaoundé. The decision of the Anglophone crisis and why it is here, and others are aware, is that France has an ultimate hand in resolving the crisis. That will indicate to you that a moment the measure of national dialogue was ended, what happened? The presidency of this nation flew to France to give an account, which will mean and give us an idea that the measure of national dialogue was not even of a Cameroonian, and that even the composition of the teams that were discussed were not even of Cameroonian, until France will get tired of it.
Yep, but these assertions you are making, there are no ways to prove.
No, they are not assertions I'm making. I'm simply telling you.
I had an interview with the then French ambassador to Cameroon, and the allegations you are making, he laughed at them.
They are not allegations.
He was taken aback when he reads and listens to things like this, because how do you prove that it is France that coined the themes that were discussed at the measure national?
The answer is simple. Mr. Biya himself said that they tried to assimilate Anglophones.
He said it.
That makes it a legitimate problem. But how the Anglophones have handled their problem is where we find ourselves today.
No, what I'm telling you,
have two problems.
Mr. Leo.
Okay, Anglophones have two problems?
Yes.
There's an Anglophone problem.
There is
an Anglophone
and there is an Anglophone terrorizing other Anglophones.
Mr. Leonard,
yes,
you will not expect an ambassador to come and water down the position of the French. Have you ever asked yourself why President Paul Biya first visit after the measure national dialogue was France? Has he ever answered the question?
Yeah, but
that is President Paul Biya.
Yeah, but the focus is not France or.
No, we are not talking about that.
About Africa.
Yes, that is what I'm telling.
We are in
Africans.
Yes.
I just said Africans and various institutions have come to realize that the solution to Anglophone problem is no longer of a Cameroon origin, and that the solution lies with the French. And this is what I'm telling you.
So
the African politics.
That we are no longer sovereign.
We are. What sovereignty are you talking about? When we are decided on sons and daughters to take over after their fathers in front of us, and we are unable to react.
Mr. John Ako, let me not cut you. And I want to put some water in your wine. Listen, after the major national dialogue, Mr. Biya said that he went to France and said they tried to assimilate France, and he told Cameroonians in their face. It did not end there. Let's follow up. He said Macron told you people in a meeting, I don't know how they organized that meeting, that he ordered the release of some francophone politicians. But the Anglophone politicians were not abandoned. So, Mr. Leo, you people should be serious.
Thank you for that clarity. What I was coming in here is that, Mr. Leonard, France will not talk again. I mean, America will not talk again. The United Nations will not talk again. African Union, we don't expect them. Patricia, Scotland, and the Commonwealth are still worried because the culture is English. And they are now very concerned. Remember, it was spoken at the House of Commons in UK, and the UK people were worried, and that Cameroonians are suffering. At one point, you should know that there was that agreement in Berlin. The 1884 agreement still works well, and that within the European Union, forget where I am and concentrate on your interests. Meaning, along them in international politics, they have concessions they have made to one another until France will see a need to intervene in Cameroon and handle the issue properly. I am coming to it to tell you that one of the highest person who promises the construction of the Northwest and the Southwest region was no other person than the French. They came and made promise of billions of dollars. Sometime you can imagine that the Ministry of Finance and the Territorial Ministry were at loggerheads with the French embassy, that the promises made to reconstruct the Northwest and the Southwest have not been met up to now. They are still waiting for that money from France, which means somebody has his territory, somebody has his land, and construction is going on there, and he has his billion to come and build his land. Nobody has a right. And right at the level of the European Union, a lot of statements were made, but somewhere there is France. France is the one we sell goods to, is the one that represents Cameroon at the world market. Banana, timber, cocoa, and coffee passes through France. And so France has its land to construct. Up to now, France is not willing to solve the problem. You will imagine that billions have been given for military equipment. We are upgrading our military equipment every year. If you consult the budget of this particular year, you realize that the budget for the military is still very heavy as compared to other African countries. And the highest of those military equipment are one of what we call the colonial debts. Party used to say, we are still paying. We are still paying those colonial debt to France because a lot of those equipment still come from France. All government agencies in Cameroon, their car mark is the Peugeot. I don't think Peugeot is produced by Americans or produced by Japanese. We should know that these are all the methods that Africans are still pinned to what we call the neo-colonialism. And it will not end until the people will one day become conscious and will rise.
You say the car marks of what?
The car mark of Peugeot. Peugeot, which government?
Of government officials.
Government officials, they go around.
But most of them are using black Prados.
No, that is for the big. I said, get on with the mark Peugeot. It's an official government car. Prado is kind of a second nature, not a government car. It's like you produce Tangi and the other person produce Supremo. Get to Yaoundé and find in the ministry. They will tell you that the government official water to drink is Tangi because it's a colonial debt we are paying. And that will leave. That French chocolate. Please, let's calm down.
But that's what you are saying. But until I see the.
Yeah, you would like to see. Mr. Jordan, that's why we are here. You call us here as political analysts.
No,
we see the vision beyond what we are saying.
Let's be intellectually correct. Yeah. Because have you ever gone into the nitty-gritties of the post-colonial agreement? Have you ever seen the details of it? It is only of late that we are coming to know it. And when you see all these French car, Renault, and so on driving in our street, it is not because the
please, can we stay?
No, Mr. Leo, I'm just telling you that I'm still giving you an understanding that where the Anglophone crisis is. If France called now and asked me what they are today, like he just said, that there is a need for a sincere dialogue, and now consider federation as the least we can offer. It will go on to this night.
Okay, let us look at the community itself. Have we done enough to solve the problem ourselves as a community? Because if you are saying here that France says, until France says a word, nothing is going to happen, and from what I gather from what you just said, the African community cannot help us because accordingly they are looking up to France. I don't know how valid that is.
Concession.
Please,
but Mr. Leo, you have to put things in their context because the Anglophone crisis in Cameroon has nothing to do with the other crisis in other parts of Africa. So let's not put everything in one box.
I'm saying that when there was a problem in is it Gambia, we saw ECOWAS go there to fix it. There was a problem.
Who controls CEMAC?
Please, let me come. Let me come. We saw a problem at in Central African Republic. We saw the grouping of African heads of state sending troops there to salvage the situation. We know that in Somalia, African states are contributing to see how Mali. We have seen how yes. But
effort to sanction.
So I'm talking. We are looking at Cameroon. Why is it not a concern to African states?
Yes, you have to separate the mentality in the West African states and the mentality in the Central African states. And in Central African states, we have micro-states that is controlled by the Jacobin of today. Paul Biya is the president, de facto president of Cameroon, and he determines the tone. What happens there? So the mentality is different. And then you have a conglomerate of states, which are, some of them are federalists when you talk of ECOWAS and so on and so forth. So the configuration is not the same. Let's not mix things up. We have to really put things in the context. Now, when you look at the context of Cameroon, we have two conflictogen post-colonial identity that has put us in the situation where we are. One is very arrogant, and the other is indirect law, giving the power to the people. That's it. So when you look at it from that angle and you make those diagnoses, you find the situation. That is why we are still insisting that Anglophone Cameroonians, because those who call themselves separatists, nobody mandated them. They picked up guns, and today they want to intimidate the common man to submit to their own will. We never did that in 1992. And that is why we got to this mess. The error we made was that we boycotted. We boycotted. We would never have found ourselves in this mess where we are today in this country if had it been we went there. And I know some people who pretend to be opposition leaders running left and right in France, working for Macron and collecting money from dictators in Central Africa, say that la politique de boycott n'a jamais payé. It's true, it has never paid, because we learned from that lesson. And that's why I think that Anglophones should sit down, mobilize themselves, come out with a strategy, and everybody should have that fatal arm that we are going to mobilize our collective distress, our collective denunciation of the hyper-Jacobinist system in a ballot box, without which we are going for a long shot. No state in the world will concede to people who have taken up guns, saying that they want to fight the military, but they turn the guns against their own people. If they were fighting the military, I think this thing would have ended long time ago. Yeah. But now they are taking the communities hostage, and the community is rising. Wiba, who is a trained socialist, said that. He found himself in exile, and now he's also being marginalized. All those people you are mentioning their name today, have you heard what they said about Wiba? Whereas it is Wiba who was trained within a social democratic political party that stood up and articulated the Anglophone crisis to make it come to the limelight. Everybody succumbed. The lawyers picked up, and the civil society, all of us, with that mentality, we stood as one people and said, okay, yes, there is a problem. But then, how do we find ourselves in a situation where it doesn't suffice for you to kill somebody, but you take that person, you cut his head, you take a young girl, cut his head, put it on a stick, say, Ayaba, children talk, say me they cut people, they are put up a stick. My man, rubbish, foolishness, okay. Nonsense.
Now, I want
rubbish.
If we say today, if France decides to solve this problem, it's going to be solved. Somebody is writing, is asking a question. I want those who are saying, ask Dr. Ako and Paddy Asanga to tell us, explain to us how France will stop the problem of school boycott, road blockade, kidnappings, ghost towns, and a host of others. How can, because these are the problems we are faced with here.
Before you go to John Ako, because I want to make this clarification. The truth is that Anglophones, as a political post-colonial entirety, they have not accepted the content of the special status. That's why they are ghost towns. People just come around with their guns and do what they do. It is not the first time that the ghost town phenomena that we have today is not a creation of those people who are sitting in diaspora. No, they have just copied a trend that has always existed amongst us as a community, and that has been carried over during the before the tripartite. They also had ghost town, Cartel Rouge, and also it was everywhere. And that's actually where we wanted to go. Just for the fact that some greedy politician came and said that when a certain parliamentarian of the SDF said, we want to make a march with solidarity to the Anglophone, he said, Keken first a march. The person called it is the problem of the Anglophone. He's not concerned. And today he wants to use the Anglophone. So we Anglophones have to sit down and talk amongst ourselves and evacuate that question, because we are too post-colonial identity. It has nothing to do with the Anglophone, with our culture as Bayangi, Bafo, Ngemba, and so on and so forth. But as post-colonial identity, let's sit down and evacuate that question.
You have to be brief, because the two of you are monopolizing. He hardly talks. Yes.
No, it's not a monopoly, Mr. Leo. The question you asked was directed to us.
Yeah, but
after our intervention, the individual asked question.
No, exactly. No, you have to be brief, please.
Yeah, we have to be brief. Yes, this is a problem we are resolving. Cameroonian problem cannot be resolved for 3 minutes or 2 minutes. No. So we are just trying to summarize it here. There are audience who are following, but if they have not followed your questioning, you ask us a question about international actors and why are they not coming for Cameroon again. You did not ask why Cameroonians are still unable to solve a Cameroonian problem. No, when we're talking about international institution, that was your question. If the audience are not gotten well, we need to get him understand that if we're talking about international intervention, there is no intervention from Europe without French presence. Come here and let's get it resolved. France will not accept federation because decentralization is of its history, and they will never accept federation against that.
I hope the message is gone through. But let's look at our internal ways of solving it. Can this problem be solved by an external force? This will go to, let me start with you. Because you have been silent.
That's right.
Yes. But, can the international community solve this problem?
I think that we've gone past that. At the beginning of the crisis, they could, but it has long been overdue. And Cameroon has this peculiarity that it had 2 colonial masters. And at the beginning of the crisis, you remember, even the British government was baffled, overwhelmed that Cameroonians are coming to them to solve problems that happened in 1961 or 1972. And the British government was, I saw some correspondence from the British Parliament, and it was like, they're asking, but how could Cameroonians be coming to them to solve their problem years back? Why can't they solve now? The world is changing. They should solve their problems now. So, just to answer your question, that even talking about France, I don't even think that France is at the position to solve any problem in Cameroon at this present moment. Because France is like the bête noire of even Cameroonians now. Because they believe that it is France that is at the root cause of this. And I don't think that France will come back to solve this problem. Added to that, Macron in the last few days said they are getting off their influence in Africa. And I hope that he's going to march words with action. Then he says they're getting off influence in Africa. He should be able to renew those pacts that they signed. I think that we need to see things being done. So I think, honestly, Cameroonians should solve their problems. There is nobody who will come from anywhere to solve this present problem that we have. We have had issues that touch much more on the lives of the people. And we have had issues that people have died, blood has been spilled, and I don't think that anybody will master this. Even those who are making noise in the diaspora, they're sitting here and there. They do not know the reality on ground. Because this issue of the Anglophone crisis is like I told somebody the other day, it is not even more about being geographical. When they say you are an Anglophone now, it's not just about the geographical location. It's not an issue in the head. Because now Francophone says that we have gone to schools and we speak English, and also we are Anglophiles. They are proud of that, of saying that. So now an issue of the Anglophone is an issue of feeling. It's an issue of the mind. So it's no more the issue of language. That when you launch concourse in Cameroon and you say want to take Anglophones, and then those or the other people of other regions, they take it because they went to English schools. And it is going to be worse if we do not sit as a family to solve this problem. Look at the 6 years down the line, that most children have not been going to school. If they have to say today that we are talking about regional balance, and when you say when you're talking about regional balance, most often they don't look into tribes. They look at the two bilingual statutes that we have, the English and the French. If you are able to write an exam in English, means that you are from the north and southwest. If you can write in French, means that you are from this other side of Cameroon. And you bet you know that in the coming years, if they have to look again in that perspective, know that no Anglophone will occupy any post here in Cameroon, because we have not been going to school. And that is a fact. And that is why there is nobody who will come and frame how this problem was solved. Not even somebody from Canada, because they have the same status the Bangladesh status. It is only us, because we know the reality of what has gone since 2016. Even not only 2016, since 1961. Starting from the federation, we know, people know how it happened, but I'm one of those people who believe that things are changing, and we should be able not to put the form, take the form and put in the mud, but to actually take the mud and put in the form and shape the way we want it to be. And it is only those who live the condition. I want to give an example, Mr. Liu. There is somebody who will say is coming to carry out a research on how a certain dance, maybe a quiffle, is being performed in my place. You come from outside. Let me say somebody from Babanki comes to perform, to take out a research. You come, you will actually write all that you have to write about how a quiffle is performed in my tribe. But let me tell you, only I can tell you exactly how I feel about it. I have the feeling, and you only see it. But that's why we need Anglophones who have the feelings of what has happened in the Akomo region. Let them come together as a people, civil society, all the other people, and the other people out of the country, they can only be observers. Let them come and give us, added to what they have. Let them tell us that this is what they suggest. Like Paddy has been coming very often. He can share his experience of where he is. In Germany, he lives in Germany. He can only share that experience. But we who are on the ground have the upper power to be able to say exactly how we want it to be. If somebody thinks that we go to France, go to America, and go to Britain, and go to wherever to come and tell us how we need to solve this problem, let me tell you, it will only be deteriorating this problem. It will only be producing a masqueraded solution to the problem. So nobody but us. And that is why I feel sorry for our people, because the young people that we even think that they should, the young people are more and more even leaving the country, and more into the bushes, and more and more staying out of school. Now, and we think that school education is one of those things that we had, and we have to start with it and reinforce it.
This is a crisis that is termed the Anglophone crisis. The Anglophones need their situation to be turned around, although Patia Sanga is making me to understand this evening that there are two Anglophone problems. I don't know. There is
a Southern Cameroon problem, there is an Ambazonian problem.
Okay, we are going to discuss that. Yeah. But let's look at this crisis. There are strategies, certainly, that have been put in place to attract either government or international attention, whether we like it or not. We've seen the ghost town is a strategy, school boycott is a strategy, maybe some spectacular attacks were all strategies to attract, pull the attention of either the international or local community, African community. How much has all of them, each strategy, how much have they worked to bring the attention of the international African or Cameroonian community? Do you have the feeling that there is more and more solidarity to all the moves made so far?
There is something we call in conflict, which is known as a period of a dead blanket, where when you carry out a war for a particular time, people get used to, and they are just used to the paradigm, and like, let's say ghost town, they are just used to, it's no use to them again. It's of no effect to them because they live with it. And there's what we call in biology as survival of the fittest, the Darwin principle. And when people are already in that kind of situation, they get used to and they survive on it. And there's also what we call acclimatization, where people get to familiar themselves with the environment. So all of these strategies had an effect from the beginning of the conflict, because that is when the people were getting to know that, hey, this is what is happening. This is the impact. For example, let's take one after the other. The first ghost town. That was 2017. That was called, that should be January, I think it should be the 7th of January or so. That was the moment where a lot of people who were born between the period of, with the period of 1990 till 2017, they witnessed their first ever ghost town. Because between the period when SDF operated, they were still children, so they had not experienced the ghost town. Now, that was when they experienced the ghost town. School boycott, it had a great effect because at the time, we had over 847,000 students completely out of school, according to UNESCO statistics at the time. Completely, not partially, I'm talking about completely out of school. Now, we had, at the time, we had 3,000 killed. With this spectacular attack. So you see, at that time it generated wave because a lot of these persons were out of school. Now, as time went on, the UNESCO, the back to school campaign started dying. People started looking at new strategies to get their children educated, send some of them out of southwest and northwest, also get some of them in some safe zone in northwest and southwest, like in Moliko, like in Boyatown in itself, to Bamenda, like in Central Town. So you see,
Mr. Jarvis, let me excuse me here. I don't want to be impolite, but I want to make it something. Do you know any organization that struggles to live by kidnapping students and preventing students going to go? So you are a very brilliant young journalist. Tell me. I know two. Boko Haram. And what is the next one?
I'm coming to you. I'll put this.
No, tell me. No.
I'll put the same question. I'll put the same question to you. Let him land. Yeah, go on.
So you see, the people got used to the school boycott. They started looking at safe zone to send their children to school. That's why you see UNESCO now is not talking about 847,000 students out of school. They're talking about 650 students partially out of school. They are using the word partially because schools have resumed in some areas, and in some key areas where there was no school at the time in 2017, there are schools there. So you see that school boycott is not paying off and is not calling attention. The ghost town in itself, you see, there are some areas where when you talk about ghost town, you see nobody on the street, but today people are using ghost town like a mode of enjoying within their quarters, have their pepper soup, good meat, sit together, like in Moya, where you go to Moya and My 16, the quarters are full. But in the early days of ghost town, even the streets, the quarters itself was dark. Today you could go to Bamenda here, voices in one snack talking, they're drinking. You see, ghost town is not that effective. Another now, this sporadic attack that they used to do. The sporadic attack that they used to do that on the military, but now they are doing it now on civilian. Now it's having a repercussion, a bouncing effect, like when you put a mirror for a light, the light bars flashback. Instead, the people are condemning this attack, so it's not instead gaining the sympathy, because one would have expected that these attacks, before, if you realize in 2018, it was when a military is attacked, you see it everywhere. But go on social media now, you don't see those attacks again. Instead, you see civilians on the crossroad, kidnapped, this, that. So instead, the people now is counterproductive at that level of sporadic attack. Now, let's come now to the other measures, which was the measure of activism, where you see surrogate of the separatists who go on Facebook and they are generating revenue. It's no longer the case as it used to be. Why? Because the people have gotten to they themselves have gotten to realize that these act that we are fighting for independence, it may not come anytime soon, because we have had a brilliant mind. Tibu Nagi have told them about what is happening. Kofi Annan is prophecy also. You talk about, you come to Dr. Monzo, have also gave his insight. Barrister Bala, who's also a who have worked within the diplomatic corps, has also given his insight. You see, it's realistic that they know that this thing cannot be achieved. So that's why you have seen that some people have abandoned the struggle, some have gone back to one and indivisible Cameroon, some welcome President Pobia when he went to America. You see how it all operated. Now, when you come, you ask Dr. Michael Dimancho a very important question, that can the diaspora, can the Western countries or partners help resolving this crisis? There is something Nana Gobina in Katia, the a Ghanaian lecturer and a former traditional doctor. He wrote a book titled Culture and Politics, the Ghanaian Paradigm. And in that book, he talked about the fact that there are socio-demographic factors that every country has, which is particular and specific to that country, that you bring somebody out of a different territory, he cannot resolve. And he also said that we are looking at, when we want to have justice in Africa, we cannot have justice by operating within the colonial mindset, where we have our judges trained in the West to come and look at post-electoral petition in our African country. And these socio-demographic factors, what do we mean? He talked about the fact that culture in itself in that area play a key role in resolving the conflict. For example, in the Northwest region, they have a particular way of resolving their conflict among them before the colonial master came. And this socio-demographic factor play a key role. If you bring a mediator from Swiss to come and mediate the Fulani conflict and in Northwest region, they will just give an advice, but they will not understand the real context of the conflict in terms of what the Fulani actually want or where they have been to. Now, it tells us that when we are looking at the resolving this conflict, the Western countries, the partners, can they play a key role? Yes. What role? Advisory role, an observer role, or a role to say, okay, you agree on this, let us see how it is implemented. Not that they are coming to impose that this should be done this way because we did this way, it succeeded. Remember that because Confederation has succeeded in Canada, it doesn't mean that if it is instituted in Northwest and Southwest, Confederation will exist. Remember, we have intertribal conflict already going on. This tribe is accusing this tribe, like in the North and Southwest and different areas. This one says Bolo, this one says Graphic, this one says this one says that. Now, it is already in itself a factor. Now, if you are going to confederation, can this set of people not agree to live under one confederal state? Of course, no. Now, if you are talking about a two-state federation, can this same set of people who are saying that these people are dominant, these other people are dominant, can they go under this two-state federation? The answer is two-word no. Now, what is now the reservation? That's what we're talking about, socio-demographic factor. It comes to play about resolving this conflict. And this has to do with culture. And let me be very honest with you, conflict on culture is difficult to solve because people look at it from their line of action that this man is our countryman, whatever he says stand. And that's what we are witnessing today. Sadina, Tondina, Mutong, the graffiti, the this, the that, the this. And if you have to remove that to resolve Anglophone conflict, you will never have a solution. In essence, what do I mean? What I'm saying is that we Anglophones and Cameroonians, we have the prerogative to resolve our conflict. The powers of resolving this conflict, it is in the hands of the common man in Bamenda, Boya, everywhere. When they will come together, like us, will come together, we'll say, okay, the government should also permit it that people should come together, hold your meetings, see what you can do peacefully, propose us the reality and how you think that we can have a chat with
Dr. Ako, I don't know whether you buy what he is saying. Can the common man in the Southwest and Northwest region force this conflict to end?
It will be very difficult, eh?
Okay.
It will be very difficult. There is that common saying that when two elephants fight, it is the grass that suffer the consequences. We have seen that in Cameroon. And again, not talk less of where one of the individual is more powerful than the other. Nobody will refuse and accept that Cameroonians have the mandate to fight. But then, what I have said and several times, people have failed to understand that the common man suffers the greatest. We are presently talking of the high prices in Cameroon. Ministers drink their sachet, or what can I mean? Mineral water. Yes, people take a lot of mineral water from abroad, others refined wine from Europe. But who is the one suffering in Cameroon? The consequences fall with the common man. And this is exactly the picture of the Anglophone crisis. We are here, I believe you equally thought of the conference in Canada and how the Canadian Minister of External Relations, including this embassy in Yaoundé, expressed a willingness to solve the Anglophone problem somewhere, who took the decision that there was no negotiation. These voices were not made by the common man. This particular voice was made by a minister of government in charge of communication. Otherwise, we call the spokesperson for the government. In all old regimes, we call them the government propaganda agent. He said, government has not mandated anybody. And somewhere, which means the suffering in Cameroon, people will tell you that it's a technique. And that if the grassroots will continue to suffer, one day they will need to resist. And what are they doing now? They go encouraging grassroots to attack. And the moment you want to attack, they encourage what they call what? Blacklegism. That other people should become informed. You are in a village, you live in your small quarter, you are now becoming the one giving information to the military. You know how dangerous such an act becomes. That a civilian become a military spy. You are equally, in many regular wars, we have seen people arrested in Iran, others are under detention in North Korea without weapon, but because they behave as spies for a belligerent or a foreign government, not even having that. This has caused a lot of havoc, which means somewhere, civilians or the common man, others are equally against the act. And you find infighting And that becomes very dangerous in a crisis which we think, like Javis mentioned, when people marched on the 22nd of September 2017, while President Paul Biya presented a speech at the United Nations, and you saw the spirit. There was no single village, even if there were 4 people, that did not march, which tells you an indication. Those who were marching were not even the diaspora. Today, Paddy is more head than those who marched in 2017. Those villages that even came out and marched, we don't even know them. When do we notice them? We notice them when atrocities have been committed. And those are the people suffering the consequences. Somewhere, these people, I don't think, they can be an asset to a solution, but they can never be a solution to it. Somewhere,
you are saying the same thing and contradicting yourself.
Please, calm down. Okay. I'm telling you the level at which we are. I'm simply telling you that a lot of times, in a quest for a solution, we have set communities against themselves. And this, we cannot end it. For us to end it, a solution will obviously come from a superior being. And that superior being, which Cameroonians have surrendered part of their liberty to, is President Paul Biya. 41 years after, in 1982, this was not the state of the Northwest and the Southwest. And what some of us were happy is that President Paul Biya knows the Anglophone problem than any other Cameroonian. He was there from the origin of it. And the people, Mr. Leo, between me and you, Paddy seated there. Paddy does not have a gun, I don't have a gun. But all of us fear the consequences that will fall on us. My brother Paddy brought a beautiful family. He would have loved for them to visit the highlands of Bamenda and a lot of beautiful places. But he's cut off. I remember several times I've been in my 17 eating kwakoko freely. But today it's no longer the case. Somebody greet me, I tried to look up and down to notice whether he had some suspicious element within him. My own village, 2016 up to now, I've not visited Manfi. A lot of people knew how some of us love Manfi. How Manfi people love their village. And this becomes so difficult. I'm not afraid because President Paul Biya will chase me not to go to the village. I'm afraid because of the grassroots where I'm coming from. That is where the base has become. In that grassroots, in that very village, some are against you, some are for you. But the danger seems to be more dangerous than those who support you. That's why even President Paul Biya with armored cars and have a lot of military, I don't know when he's for Cameroonians.
I don't know who would react to this. So many messages are coming, but there is always this issue of defending our heritage. Mr. Jarvis, fair to understand that what the Anglophones are fighting to protect is a colonial heritage and not a tribal problem. So the West stand in a better place to help resolve this problem than the Cameroonian themselves. Yes, but which is a better to protect? Why are we not fighting for our cultural heritage, rather dying for the colonial heritage and justifying why the West is better place to solve our problem?
Briefly, we are talking about I'm talking about the tribal issue because the combination of African states, Cameroon is a combination of different nations. Cameroon in itself is a combination of different nations, and those different nations have their different states in what the Europeans would prefer to call them as states in their own side. For example, the womb is a nation on itself. The people all these different now, so it's a combination. Now what we are talking about, that you cannot look at the colonial state in itself without looking at the nation it itself. That's why you hear some people will tell you want a 10-state federation. Ask them simple question, why? Because when we were these people had this dominance, and so we don't want this. So we cannot look at this conflict from the prism of this colonial side. Prime Minister Abiy again said in his Nobel Peace Prize, I like quoting him because when he made this speech, he said that we must look at the successes of the past and look at the failures.
It's by this time.
I just want.
It's not. Let him talk. He's very brilliant.
I just wanted to end that when we look at the success of the past and the failures, we form a new culture. What he called it MacDemel. A new culture that works for us in a reality. That's what I'm talking about. Let's take away colonialism.
Yes, let's look at most Anglophones will say we are fighting for our colonial heritage. We shouldn't look at our cultural heritage.
It has never been a problem. Cultural heritage has never been a problem.
Yeah, but what's
Mr. Liu, before I dive into your question, I want to correct something that Dr. Akojo said. It's not really a point of correction, but to straighten the point. And he put the question and answer it himself, but in some kind of, I don't know what happened. He said, in every nooks and crannies from the northwest and southwest region, people came out on the 22nd of October to march to decry the collective pain that all of us had. But you don't see the reason why those same people who came out have now become people who are saying that the boys are there, they are indicators. Can you understand where I'm coming from? So, it is the theory when the people would have reason. When you get in, you have a genuine cause. You have to have plan B, plan A, and then an exit strategy. These people that you people are listening to them, are listening from them in the diaspora, what is their exit strategy? No, you kill us to the last man standing. Odeshi and all that nonsense. Where are we today? Rubbish. Foolish. So, let me come back to your question. Mr. Leo, what was your question again? Because
heritage.
Yes, that's it. Where Anglophones are
Mr.
fighting
Leo,
for a colonial.
I am a Ngemba child with a post-colonial heritage legated on me. Sometimes when I write, people want to come and correct me. I'm not this young boy, the grandchild of Montesquieu or Shakespeare. I am not obliged to be able to be perfect in French. You get the point? So, to me, and to many other people, anthropologists, they will want us to have a form of state that reflect federalism, which was that conglomerate of states, of states that they came together, and with their way of resolving problems.
By theory and by culture.
Yes! And we did not have prisons at the time. When you were a recalcitrant, the community sat and decided your fate.
According to the rules.
Yes.
The custom of the
but then, when they came out with their colonial mentality and their states which were 500 years older than us, we just embraced them because they were whites. They came out and showed us mirror. They had the Bible and they gone under. That's where we find ourselves. Now, if we think that we are mature enough to stand on our own, we should be questioning all the institutions that were created by the colonialists, starting with the United Nations. How are we represented there? The Security Council, they take decisions to do whatever they want to do. Then they come and tell you that African Union. Who sponsors African Union? No. So we must go back to the drawing board and to summarize everything and bring it to the Anglophone crisis. We Anglophones, we have to go back and search into our souls. How do we become part of Cameroon? Was it by the barrel of the gun, or it was the collective will by people who we mandated indirectly to represent us, and then they walked out and decided that we want to be Cameroonian. They went on the field campaign, and we overwhelmingly voted to become part of Cameroon. So if we don't do that thing, and we keep on thinking that, oh, you give some few boys and girls banga, tell them that cut this man's head and put, it's going to make headlines. Those headlines are negative headlines. They have portrayed us from the northwest and southwest region to be barbaric, violent. We can rape, kill our own, and expect the white boys and girls to come and help us. It will never work. With the white boys and girls, they don't look at it from that. They just look at you as primitive people who, as de Klerk said, Frederick de Klerk, the one-time president, if you give Africans sovereignty, they will kill themselves. This is what is happening in Northwest and Southwest today. Okay. And then we are still post-colonial states that has an army, has a police, has gendarmeries, and so on. And this post-colonial state, it is in Nigeria, it is Chad, and so on and so forth. Some are more advanced than the others. But in the context of the Central African region, which Cameroon is dominant, don't expect anything from anybody who's coming abroad, because Cameroon is protecting their interests through this proxy war, Boko Haram, created by France.
Okay.
That's where we are. Thank you, Mr. Liu.
Greetings, Mr. Liu and panelists. In Bamenda, each person is responsible for his or her own security. I was taken from my house at 6 p.m., taken to barefoot, and given the beatings of my life, and demanded 1 million francs CFA to support the struggle. Okay, the struggle seems to be out of hand in every aspect. Elvis is writing from Bomenda. We are talking about, somebody says that the West is better placed to solve this problem because what we're fighting for is our colonial heritage. So the master, the culture for which the fighting is ongoing. But we are talking about Anglo-Saxon culture, Doctor. How much of that culture is reflected in the struggle, and how much of it has been preserved so far?
Yeah, I think that we are giving a lot of proposals on the panel here, and those proposals can only mature when we must have silenced the guns.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, a lot of brilliant proposals about our culture, how we have to live the way we live before all. But then, for now, that is not the solution. For now, we have to silence the gun because we have already accepted the culture. We have accepted the culture. Yes, let the war stop, and then we can now see how we can go back. You know about a message there. Yes, we can now go back to our own culture, our own countryside, and begin to do. A lot of people have framed up their. Many people don't even know that Libya had its own democracy that was different from any in the world. They call it Jamria. Yes, it was particular to Libya. So we can frame all these things when our country is in peace. And you know, sometimes I look at this issue of the Anglophone, and it looks like that period of issue of Pan-Africanism, issue of negritude, where people really want to come back and feel themselves how Africa continent is supposed to be. They build their culture, their identity, all of those. And we have had people who have actually, activists who have gone far. And my criticism about all of these things is that the more you think that somebody is trying to liberate you from this thing, is the very moment you see that person being immersed in what he's condemning. And this is one of the principal issues that we are facing. Because we will say that let us come back to our own very roots. But those who are even trying to lead us to our very roots are those who are even practicing something different. So we find that there's a lot of incoherence. But the very foundation of this crisis was about things that didn't even concern us, Cameroon. Anglo-Saxon, bilingual, and all of those things. They started enumerating things that they are missing. And some people are so nostalgic about it. They said, you know, during those days, the federalism, we used to have this, we used to have education, all of those. But true, because we are already into it. We just need to perfect it. We have accepted what they call democracy. Democracy is not our thing. Yeah, but since we have accepted, we need to perfect it. We need to make it resemble something that we need to contextualize it and put it in the African context where we feel that we can ever better manage it. We can use a word, but fit that word into our own context. So I think that talking about bringing somebody else to come and instill in us what we used to do is like, I wanted to compare it to the issue of how we wanted to revindicate and liberate the African continent. We have had people like Sedat Senghor who talked about the negritudes and the MSS. We have Steve Biko here in South Africa, who the author of Black Consciousness Movement. And when I look at all of these people, I actually see that there are people who are selfless. You know, there are people who actually wanted to liberate the people. We look at someone like Steve Biko in South Africa. He died. He decided to die for the people to be saved. But us, we want to live so that the people should die. And this is the paradox of the whole thing. So what are we working for? Today, you can hardly say exactly what our boys are fighting for. Let me call them our boys. Don't take me badly if I call them our boys. They are still our children. And that is why we keep on saying that if a child wrongs you, don't send the child out. Bring the child and put it under the bed. We are going to solve that problem while the child is under the bed. When you send the child outside, you want to radicalize the child. And that is why we keep on calling them our boys. They are our young brothers and sisters. They're where they are. Okay. And I still believe that most of them are acting out of the norm. They are acting out of their senses. I really think that we need to identify with them and set down on us those who actually have a peace to be able to settle out this issue.
Yeah, somewhere the question you asked Dr. Dimacho, I wish just to add to what extent the Anglo-Saxon culture has been protected within the struggle. Mr. Leonard, you understand that it started as the lawyers and the teachers strike, and more than 1,000 teachers of the English expression have been recruited into the government to promote bilingualism. And again, the creation of the Bilingualism Commission was a fallout of the same issue of the English language being, mistreated or misguided. And secondly, thirdly,
the creation of the common law bench,
Supreme Court, and all the state universities,
universities,
and ENAM, and even the launching of more, magistrates of the English expression, and even transferring English magistrates to English zones. That has come as even a gift. And you should equally know that one of the marginalization spirit was that an Anglophone can never take a top position like that of the Minister of Territorial Administration or that of basic education and secondary education. So you see them again now. English people are at top places too. We are seeing of recent. What worries us most is the side of education when it comes to this culture of the type of education, because a lot of people we find more Francophones in English schools than Anglophones were doing in French schools. But it becomes so funny now where we have left the Northwest and the Southwest and we are having that same lecture but in French zones, which means somewhere the assimilation process might have been hesitated by the presence of the war. Like President Pobia said, more English people doing French and English zone, English zone to come to French zone will mean somewhere they will become more French trainings than they would have been when we saw ministers sending children to Our Lady of Lords, St. Bede's, and even Seka or Bishop Rogan. Today it is a converse. We want to have the best school in Douala. We need the best school in Yaoundé, so they come there. And at the end, what has happened to some of our children, you find them in the compound speaking more of French, even with their friends, than they even do with you at home.
I'm surprised. I see my kids and I get the
so that is this is what you guys learn. This is what we are saying. In fact, I had an auntie who came home and she was surprised that on her sitting quietly, the children were speaking fluently in French, and she's just lost.
It is normal. Let me not. It is normal that it is normal that the minority also identify with the majority.
No, but that is what we're saying. That the assimilation process has just been speed up, and so the presence of the crisis is gradually maybe soaking the English
become more together.
To come not together, out of your place. We would have received that and developed your place, and people come there to develop it. Today, not publicity. You know what people like Afro Brains are doing, and even Dr. Ningwanyam, that a lot of their schools that were based in those areas now have their bedrock in the so Catholic University of Boya and all the like. When we knew that Boya was the fountain of knowledge, and that when you need knowledge, UB is better than University of Douala. Today, you find more comfort in this other side. Okay, this is why I think.
Let me take 4 messages here, so many of them. Mr. Leo, good evening to all in the studio. I really think it's time for us, the Anglophones here on ground, to stop this rubbish. How can we be paying money to the boys before burying our dead? How can we be paying money for the boys before we construct a house in your village, just to name a few? Is this the type of country we want to build? It is too much. We are suffering in the name of the republic. George is writing from Bamenda. This one says, I think there are 5 people involved in this crisis: the Cameroon government, the Ambazonian, the Cameroon military, the Ambazonian government, the people, civil society, church, journalists, etc. None of these groups can be sidelined. The people, journalists, civil society can talk all they want. If the other groups are not involved, it's not possible. Badwin is writing from Boya. Thank you so much for organizing such a very important program. I am from Gambia and I'm following you keenly. I think it will be very important now for elites in the Anglophone sit and come with proposals how to solve the problem. The men with guns should be engaged and also be part of discussion. All the major tribal leaders should be involved, and the diaspora. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Greetings to all in the panel. My view is that no third party can actually help us solve this crisis. The solution is in our hands. That is in the Northwest and Southwest should come out as one person, okay? Mr. Leo, good evening. This matter cannot be solved by we in Cameroon. Edwin is writing from Boya. Mr. Leo, Anglophone side should establish a structure that will work to implement plans, and that should two things: develop a strategy that needs to be followed by all parties, solve the conflict between Cameroon, between people in that side. Unity is very important in between them. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. My greetings to all the panelists. I am so happy for the topic of today. Mr. Liu, when this crisis started, some Anglophones were so happy, thinking that this country was going to be divided and all the southern Cameroonians will be fine. This crisis has exposed some of the so-called diaspora for their wicked and selfish interests. Anglophones have proven that they are not united, and this problem can only end if the Anglophone diaspora come together, accept their wrong, and tell the boys in the bush to drop their guns. I'm James, writing from Boya. Okay.
There's something that I just want to add.
Yeah.
We should talk about the colonial heritage. Professor Pierre Lumumba gave a paper recently that was in the East Africa, and he said that no civilization, and he was quoting one author who talked about colonial heritage, and he said throughout history, and we all are there, and we can also be very objective about that. Throughout history, no civilization has known real development in the language of another. In the language of another. No civilization throughout history has known real development in the language of another. And he said the Chinese growth, their development is in Chinese. In they go to the even in our European Union, party can bet with us when they are in that European Union. The Scottish will speak their language. The Dutch will speak Dutch. Everybody, but when you come to African Union, when you come to African Union, we either speak English or French in African Union. And he also stated that when the culture inherited, that no civilization can actually grow by building its structures on inherited colonial institutions. And I am submitting to that writer who talked about the fact that we are fighting for colonial and not cultural, that we are fighting for cultural and not colonial, because the colonial was taken from the cultural, and until we go back to the cultural to know who we are, then we cannot know where we are going to. Because we cannot just base on 1961, but we should go before 1961 and look at what the Europeans had called tribes today, which was nations that came together.
Okay. We are also asking you who is watching us here to vote for the best private university in Cameroon. Tell us which is your best private university. Send us your choice, and also tell us why you think Hibmat University is the best. Tell us why ICT University is the best. Tell us why ESG is the best. Just send us your vote, and by the end of the month, we're going to tell you who our viewers of Prime Hour think is the best private university in Cameroon. I want us to see how to solve this problem. How do we actually get the needed attention and find a lasting solution to this problem?
In fact, we have been talking this time and again on the greatest is self-reconciliation. Self-reconciliation, that everybody should recognize that we created and we have made a lot of errors, that there was an Anglophone marginalization, there was an Anglophone problem, but today what we have is something which has been concocted and maybe hijacked by other ideologies, whether unionists, separatists. All this never existed at the beginning of the crisis. We need to rethink that the act of forgiveness of one another is the strongest, and that we stop pointing hands. Can all of us assume and accept that we made errors, and that we choose a different path, and that we can write history straight? This equally, we are calling on the government of Cameroon to sincerely believe that even the path the government took at the very beginning was a very bad path. Because dissolving the consortium has never helped us. And even when we present, you imagine those who have killed in the bushes are today being set free, and billions of francs CFA were given to them, where some people said they sponsored terrorism outrightly. And today, we find the same people being used to fight others, while others who were in the diaspora are in the prisons. It becomes there is a need, like you saw Mandela did, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, to tell everybody sincerely that we are sorry, and that we cannot construct a nation by reminding ourselves of the errors we have committed, but seeing how far we can go. That is how nations are built. In the English region, like I said, federation should be considered as an option. At times, not only for the English people. Why not? Imagine dividing the Northwest region into 3 future regions, and even Manu becoming a region, and making Cameroon a 21-state federation. And so that the infighting, you will not find FACO people telling again that you should kill the people from the Northwest, and then give FACO a region on its own, so that the people of Kumba should have a region of their own. And let's see how the next Cameroon will look like in the next 50 years, whether we'll still talk again of English French. Why not divide the West region into even 3 and the littoral even into 4? Let's see how the battle starts there. What we are crying is that development should get to the people. And the closer the administration, the larger the effectiveness of government decisions. And some of this is what resulted to Anglophone problems. And we think if federation is taking, the grassroots are involved, and that everybody has a voice, and that the government is a legitimate government to take care of the people, not to intimidate.
Okay.
That military force, guns, people said, like Paddy said, guns have never resolved any problem. We will start from the table and we'll always end with the table. So why then consider guns as ultimate? The silent nature of this, and like you said, for 2-3 years, that nothing is done, is that people believe that we can continue killing. When you are into some forums, you realize that some people use the word konko, that everywhere you cannot accept with them is to kill you. Some people use the word blackleg. So when you don't agree with them, it's to kill you. So this is the rule to stop an idea. And I said, no idea, no politics of gains have been gained through the gun. When it has to do with the philosophy of the people, it will never work.
Okay.
And the moment you kill one, you generate even more than 10.
Okay.
That is what happens.
So if you're watching us, please tell us which private university you think is the best. You can vote using a link that is going to be communicated to you, but you can also send text messages. Okay, the link is there. Go to that link on your social media appliances, either a phone or maybe your computer, and vote using the link. But you can also send text messages. Paddy, how do we stop this problem as communities of this Northwest and Southwest?
First of all, Mr. Liu, you brought my attention to something that I would have forgotten, but I was invited to the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding between ICT University and the University of Buea. And it is not a secret to anybody. I am involved in the logistic team of ICT University, and most of their cars and what you see transporting students will be coming from Germany. So I am proud to tell our televiewers that ICT University is the place to be. Not because Mbarika, Professor Mbarika, the founder, is a Boban, but it is also because he is somebody who thinks and thinks straight. So I think they are coming with a package for the University of Buea. It's not just an MOU, no. They have a Microsoft team where they will bring a lot of technology to the University of Buea that I think they should also extend it to the University of Bamenda, and why not other universities in Cameroon. So ICT University, for those people who like me or don't like me, know that ICT University for me is the best, you see. So well, let's separate that.
This one says the best private university in Cameroon is a Pan-African Institute for West Africa, PIDWA. Okay, this one says the best way for those living in Bamenda to survive is to remain neutral. Newland Emmanuel is writing there. Yes, how do we solve this problem as a community?
Yes, I think
that is a question asked now, but you started talking about.
Okay, I hope I'm not going to pay for advertisement.
Okay, Paddy, no, you have Paddy, my time. Paddy, it's okay. No, Paddy, 1 minute. Yeah. So how do we solve this as a community?
Every community has its own problems, and the problems of the people in Fakou, the people in Meme and other regions are not the same. That's why you have ghost towns in certain areas and in other areas you don't have. So when every community should come out with its memoranda, and when Anglophones will sit down as a collective entity to discuss among themselves, you present it as your doléances, and then we find a solution. But if you go around doing what we are doing, committing the same errors and expecting different effects, you get in an infinite cycle of violence where we find ourselves today. And then it's resolved to smoking of Indian hemp, kidnapping people, and saying where then they're looking for Mr. Bia in the bush, whereas he's seated in a 2D. So this is where we find ourselves. I want to thank my Major Prime or two for always inviting me, because my Major Prime is like a child to my heart. He had given the voice to Anglophones, and today there is a new class of elites that my Major Prime has fabricated. That's why it is being feared, even by some television stations who claim that they had the monopoly, they had all the audience, and they were just trying to use the Anglophone crisis to sell their agenda. But today, the voice of the Anglophone is there, and we are there to promote it. And I want to say thank you, Mr. Liu, and thank your promoter.
Thank you very much. Greetings, Liu and panelists. Like Paddy said, it is a post-colonial problem. It is not a problem of bilingualism and cannot be solved internally because it involves strong French interest in English Cameroon. To overcome this French interest, international pressure from outside is required. Anyone who claims that this problem can be solved under the current political structure in Cameroon is naive and does not understand the complexity of the Southern Cameroon's question. Thanks. Dr. Wesley Angoni is writing from the United States of America. You see that it is very complex and that we cannot solve it until the international community steps in.
And of course, I'm one of those people that against the international community coming in anyway. As I said in my introduction, I said yelling has not stopped it, bullying has not stopped it, brutalizing has not stopped it, gunning down people, killing people has not stopped it. We have held several meetings and nothing has happened. It has come back to the fact that we have to look ourselves in the faces. And I think it starts with a genuine dialogue. And I think that this is going to happen until somebody who is after it, I would call it the knife and the cake, the president of the republic says that, okay, I have heard you, I have understood you. Let us go to the table and talk. I think that talking doesn't mean that it takes anything from him. Talking just means that he recognizes that there are some children who are crying somewhere and they need to be listened to. That is just about talking on the table is. And I think that this is going to, Mr. Leo, let me finish by this strong sentiment that this is going to happen, and until it happens, the crisis will continue.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu. These guys say they are fighting for us and to see Boya, of which they have made us their enemies and their chop farms. May God forgive them and bless you all. More grace to your elbows. Lucas is writing from Muyuka. Good evening to you, Lucas. I agree with the fact that we need to develop our own culture to govern ourselves. But for now, we need the colonial masters to help us put an end to this war they created. If it means holding a snake to save you from drowning, please do so without hesitation. I prefer pen to gun even in my next war, okay? Good evening to you all in the studio. We are tired of this nightmare. We have been brainwashed a lot, okay? Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm thrilled watching this program from Yaoundé. It's very inspiring, okay? Thank you very much. How do we solve this from our local perspective?
Local perspective, surrogacy need to be discouraged. And talk about surrogacy, I'm talking about the surrogate of the government and the surrogate of the Amber sympathizers who are not on the field, who are camouflaging under the verge of federalism, who celebrate killing of innocent civilians or killing of purported fighters. We must respect and by the constitution, we will live by the constitution. The constitution of Cameroon guarantees the respect of freedom and also the respect of life and due process. The constitution of Cameroon also simply means that when you are guilty as charged or when you are accused, you are supposed to be taken to a competent authority, judge, and if you are found guilty, you have given the punishment by what is enshrined in the constitution. Because we will all reap the dividends of what we are sowing.
We want to say thank you, Doctor, for coming.
Yeah, the pleasure is mine. Every time to inform Cameroonians, and why not Africa and the world at large. The Anglophone problems will be resolved, and we need Cameroonians to be committed to true and sincere reconciliation.
Okay, thank you too for coming, Paddy.
Thank you, Mr. Liu, and I want to thank all your brilliant panelists. And I think that
a solution within Cameroon, under a Cameroon framework, is very, very okay, because you want to also understand that there are people who will be going to prison not because they violated Cameroonian laws, but because they violated foreign laws. But these countries where they are living, they say they are not interested in the Cameroonian problem. If you violate our laws, then you go to prison for violating our laws. So the Anglophone problem is going to be resolved within the Cameroon framework, but I don't think that there is any white boy who will come and press a button and say this Anglophone problem is solved.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you too for coming, Dr. Ndimancho.
Thanks so much, Mr. Leo, and to say a special hello to all the militants of the SDF. Of course, this is that legendary party in Cameroon, that nostalgic party, the SDF, that is taken off the ground. And of course, I'm only an observer, but I think that we need at least a party like the SDF to remain existing.
Okay. Jarvis, thank you too for coming.
Thank you very much, and good evening to the Bishop of Boya, the President of Catholic University of Boya. Catholic University is also one of the best universities in Cameroon.
Okay. Hello. The show is very interesting, Mr. Liu. I'm writing from Sancho. I'll take a few. What's need putting in number for televiewers to contribute when we spend our time, but contributors are not taken into consideration? Yes, I cannot read all the messages, my dear brother. I read those that I can. Good evening. I'm Castro, writing from Yaoundé. Tell Padia Sanga that he is two-side class. Okay. Okay. Good evening. I'm Jack Zell, writing from Bamenda. The best way to solve the Anglophone crisis is to bring all the parties together on the table, because both parties are fighting the common man. One most important thing is all man should respect us. Good evening, Mr. Liu. To me, National Polytechnic Bambui is the best private university in Cameroon, because through the mindset of the proprietor, in blessed memory, they train job creators and not job seekers. Movo Messi is writing from Bamenda. Greetings to you in the studio. Really appreciate the encouraging works in educating the citizens. Extend my special greetings to Paddy Asanga. I've been his follower since abroad and at home. Tell him not to finish the goodies. Clovis is writing from Yaoundé, Paddy. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Greetings to everyone. Mary is writing from Limbe. Good evening to you, Mary. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Those that are barbaric will never go unpunished, but unless we go and take the root causes, the Anglophone problem, we might continue in this. I don't know what you were writing. Edwin is writing from Fumbot. He say, I vote for ICT University because they study to obtain skills and not just certificates. Winka, Edwin, good evening to you. Let our elites get together, unite, and show love to their people. Ngwa Walters is writing from Bamenda. This one says, my best university is ICT University. This one says, ICT University is the best as it creates job creators. Okay. Good evening to you. We are going to listen to Julian tell us more about the voting for the best private university in Cameroon. Julian, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Leo. Good evening, televiewers of my Media Prime TV. And like you've already been stating, which private university is your best private university institution in Cameroon? Yes, on the Prime Hour show, you, the viewers, get to choose which personality or institution is doing a remarkable job in Cameroon, adding their own quota to the development of the country. And so the voting is done through a website. Yes, this is for more accountability and for the structure to be more professional, because the Prime Hour Viewers Choice Award is something which is going to be happening regularly on the program, and the person or institution with the highest vote is going to be crowned the winner at the end of the month, like Mr. Leo has stated. And of course, they're going to be giving an award certificate right here on the program, live on the program. So when you go to the website, which has been posted on our Facebook page, the link is there on our Facebook page, click on the link and it will take you directly into the website. You see the schools that have been listed there, and there are two options. If you don't find the name of your school on the first slide, you click on the second slide, you'll find all the schools that have been listed there, and you click on the school you want to vote for, and it's going to take you directly to the voting site, which is 100 francs per vote. But if you want to vote for 300 francs, right up to 50,000 francs or 100,000 francs, you can vote
which
for
which
that.
are the schools shortlisted?
All right, Mr. Leo, the schools shortlisted are HIMSS Boya. We have Pan-African Institute for West Africa. That's Petwa. Some people have already been stating that is their best private university. We have Hipmat University. We have Institut Université de Gov de Guinea. We have Catholic University Institute of Boya, that's CUIB. We have International University Bamenda. We have Biaka University. We have the Siantu University. We have Fomic Polytechnique. We have Swiss Link Professional University in Kumba. We have St. Louis University. We have Université de Montenegro. We have ICT University Yaoundé. We have Chitema University, which is in Boya. We have the National Polytechnique Bamenda. We have Landmark Higher Institute, it's in Boya. We have HIPS Boya Higher Institute of Professional Studies. We have Université Catholique Saint-Jérôme de Douala. We have Ayuget University. We have equally Trustec University. So, Mr. Leo, those are the universities listed or nominated for the Prime Hour Viewers' Choice Award for Best Private University in Cameroon.
Okay, so we will be expecting you to start voting.
Yes.
From now till say 2-3 weeks. We're going to declare who our viewers has chosen as the best private university in Cameroon. Thank you for coming, Julian.
Thank you so much, Mr. Leo, for having me. And of course, like Mr. Leo has mentioned, I would just like to reiterate, please state why you're selecting a private university as the best in Cameroon. We want to know the reason so that it is more accountable and objective.
Okay, we want to thank you all who took time off to watch this edition of Prime on My Media Prime. Tomorrow is going to be another opportunity to look at different aspects of our life as a nation, as a continent, and as a world. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.